And with that, we're ready to commence with this session. So as innovative design strategies and best practices for creating user-friendly and empowering experiences that cater specifically to the needs and preferences of women, next we have a workshop on the Trust Toolkit, designing user interface, user experiences for her. And without any further ado, we'd like to welcome our panelists up on stage. Firstly, let's have a round of applause and welcome our moderator, Dr. Supriya Sharma, Partner Insights, CIIE.co. Welcome, ma'am, and I believe you will be welcoming our speakers as well. All right, all right, you can take a call wherever you'd like to be, ma'am. And we'd prefer that a lot of you come up in front as well. It's a workshop, so there's going to be a lot of interaction. So I'd like to welcome Trisha Ghoshal, AVP Insights, CIIE.co, and thank you so very much for joining. Ma'am, all over to you.
Thank you very much. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Supriya, like our generous and excited host said. I work at CIIE and head the research function. And my colleague here, Trisha, both of us have been colleagues. I also have some other colleagues in the room and some of our very, very dear startups that we worked with over the last couple of years. We have about less than an hour with you, and we hope to work through these 50 minutes. Maybe I could, I don't know, can it switch to the PPT? Yes, thank you very much. So what we wanted to talk to you today about is based on our work. Am I clicking the right button? This isn't working here. Anyhow, so while this, sure, you can move on to the next slide. This is largely the plan for the next 50 minutes or so. The next slide, please. For those who may not be aware of our work, we're the Entrepreneurship Center platform at IIM Ahmedabad. We started as a small center in a dorm room and now have spread some of our work across different cities. In a nutshell, we study, educate, incubate, accelerate, and invest in startups in India, predominantly in 3 themes: climate tech, digitization, and deep tech. In total, we've, and some of you may not have heard of our name, but you might have heard of the kind of work that we've done. You may have, this is a Fintech Fest, so you may have heard of the Bharat Inclusion Initiative. You may have heard of FI Lab. If you've been observing the entrepreneurship ecosystem for some time, you may have heard of the Power of Ideas. You may have heard of India Innovation Growth Program. That's some of our work. So in total, we've mentored, coached about 5,000 startups, accelerated about 1,500, invested in about 700. And as a team, we are entirely driven to help driven founders who are taking on hard problems, and I see some of the founders in the room. Over the last, I think, 6 years, a little over 6 years, we've intentionally committed to building or helping and supporting founders that are building fintech solutions for the Bharat customer. And we've done various interventions there. When we started the initiative, this was the time that Jan Dhan was taking off. This was the time that there was conversations around the promise of India stack and how could fintechs leverage the stack to be able to build solutions and reach them better to the Bharat customer. And over our journey, we've worked with over 50 fintechs who've cumulatively went out and, thank you so much, and impacted and reached and impacted about 30 million customers. Over this experience, we've brought back insights, and among many other things, one that we are sure of is if we want to continue doing meaningful things for the underserved customer segments in the country, it has to be now sharply focused on specific customer segments. So Bharat customer is no longer a segment. We need to double down, identify what are these a little sharper segments within the low and middle income customer groups, and then work with fintechs, and then create interventions so as to be able to make better impact. The first step in this direction is working for women. And why not? I don't need to talk about the gender gap in access and usage of financial services. I also don't need to talk to you about the impact of what happens when women get access to or use financial services. I think enough and more of that data is around. As this informed audience, I don't need to re-emphasize what you already know. What we want to talk to you about are some heavy things, albeit I know that this is right after lunch. I would have preferred not to talk about heavy things, but the way that we, at least our view on why this gender gap and what are these couple of things that we could do to bridge this, to make this smaller, is work on the product side. Also because our channel of work are the startups. So then our natural inclination is to look at startups and then what can we bring to them to be able to design products that are more customer-centric. And when we are thinking about the woman as the customer, and of course, completely acknowledging that the woman is not one customer segment, and with that huge caveat, can we create product side interventions to be able to reach and serve this customer better? And in that direction, the previous panel, if some of you were in the room, you also heard trust being mentioned several times. And in any fintech conversation, trust is a huge part that concerns both people on the product side as well as on the demand side. And therefore, we've been looking at trust, looking at some data over a couple of years, working with fintechs, getting some insights from them. We've put it all together into what seems to be a crisp, but the first step to get started on some design side changes that we can do to help build trust with our women customers. Before we jump into the toolkit, I just wanted to lay this context. We define trust as a belief that the truster, so me as a customer, I have in the other party, which in this case could be a DFS, a fintech, or an incumbent, that this DFS will not take advantage of me, especially in my moments of vulnerability. So largely, if you were to break this down, there are 4 key components that stand out. There is a truster, the customer. There is a trustee, the product side. There is a relationship between these two, which means how is interaction happening, what is the way of communication. And then, of course, there is the context, the environment of the customer and the larger ecosystem. When we break down the concept of trust into actionables that you and I would see nearly every day, you realize that you cannot take the customer out of the thinking about trust. The truster is the woman. The relationship has, her expectations, her what she's bringing to the table. What are her mental models? And you cannot take her context out of this entire equation. And therefore, while there are toolkits required for building trust in general, for low middle income customer segments or just about any customer segment, but when we're talking about women as customers, we need to apply a gendered lens to be able to build or design UI UX interventions that will help improve this customer's trust in our products. I will just quickly move on to the slide. Before we go further, I wanted to just leave a couple of not data points, but a summary of what research tells us already. And I will now want to hear from you. What do you think are some of the inhibitors to women's trust in digital financial services? Any thoughts, anything that you've seen, anything that you've read about, heard about? What impedes their trust? Why do they not trust or not as much any fintech, any financial services or product? Asking for a lot of data, sure, yeah. Anything else? Financial literacy, so I don't understand what all the jargon that I'm seeing, so maybe, yeah. Anything else? Too much going on, yeah. Anything else? One last inhibitor. I don't know what will you do with these documents. Why do you need all of this? Yeah.
And if that's just the basic transactional, I mean, most of them are not even doing banking
Yeah.
on mobile or net banking.
Yeah. So one, this process is new, and then I don't even know what all are you asking for, and do you really need all of this? Absolutely. If I was to go on the other extreme, what do you think would be some of the strengtheners of women's trust in financial services?
The speed of it?
How quickly can I do the transaction?
Yeah, I mean, the fast, how fast it is, it does it instills some trust in it.
Okay.
No breakage in journey. I mean, once
Yeah.
you executed a transaction, it has to go through and for it to let me know that it's happened.
To let you know that it's happened, absolutely. What else? The why of the what? Oh, absolutely. So this is on the other side that, sure, you need this information, but why do you need this? Yeah? One last. The visibility of the journey. I don't know how long will this go, when will I actually get access to my account, or the loan that I'm applying for, or the insurance policy. Oh, absolutely. So here's what stands out from some research that we've read, some data, some work that's already available out there. The amplifiers of trust are affective connect. So do I feel that this product is for me? Do I feel some emotional connect with this product? Is it for me? Is it made by people like me? Social approval and validation, of course, and I'm sure we know that women's trust comes from who they interact with. So if four of my friends are using the same thing, chances of me being confident in using it are higher because I know who to ask for help if something gets stuck. Frequent and meaningful communication, I don't need to say more here. On the other end, the diluters are information being sparsely available or being unavailable, and some of this actually goes to the grievance redressal breakages that we see. Risk perception, and some of us spoke about it, that I don't know, and this could be about the data that I'm required to share, or what do I stand to lose if something goes wrong. Of course, enough social conditions of self-doubt, the burden of consequence, and I mean, is my spouse okay with it? Or what will happen if something goes wrong, and how will he react to it? These are just, a summary of things that, sorry. Oh, no, that's fine. I thought you were saying something. These are just a quick summary of what stands out in literature. We've looked at this, we've spoken, like I said, we've spoken to fintechs, we've spoken to some academics as well, and put it all together in the form of a toolkit that has 3 key pillars. And that is your cue. I do want to welcome Trisha, who has a long, not long, but yeah.
The last slide, do you have any demographic, like from where these basically women from which section of society, or which tier 2 or tier 3 cities this data are?
So this is from across studies. It is also possible that parts of these, so let's say frequent and meaningful communication, or even risk perception, are not just limited to the low-income groups. These would have been relevant for women in general. So this is not from just one study which captured just one group and very coherent segment, but we've put together this from various studies done focused on women, most of them on low-income, women from low-income groups.
So what are we trying to do with this toolkit? The toolkit, as we look into it going ahead, will help us understand how to balance her trust modifiers and create trustworthy experiences, DFS experiences. And from our observations and research, we have been able to boil down this to a framework of 3 C's, and I'll go ahead with the first C of this. The first C is competence. What do we mean by competence? Competence is your user's ability to interact with your product in a confident way. In the context of women at the last mile, building for competence is building to improve the digital financial confidence of your user. Now, women at the last mile are not very comfortable with digital environments. Most of them do not even have their personal phones. Their interaction with formal financial institutions and structured financial products is also rather limited. Perhaps goes to the extent of owning a bank account, using the bank account to withdraw benefit transfers, or doing small savings or FDs. Now, Supriya sort of alluded to this earlier, that there is indeed a gender gap in access and usage of financial services. So this, to a large extent, is a result of financial services being traditionally designed keeping the male, as the default customer. We keep talking about gendered barriers to access to financial services. Mobility is a barrier. Control over finances is a barrier. Social capital is a barrier. Now, these are all barriers that women face, while men don't. And these are barriers that restrict women from accessing financial services, which means that somewhere there is a lack of tailoring, there's a lack of targeting. Okay? So now this is not to say that since women are not using financial services as actively, that they don't have financial acumen. There is a tremendous amount of data that shows that women at the last mile in low and middle income household are capable of complex mental accounting. They take care of household budgeting. They match irregular, often unpredictable income flows with standard household expenses month on month. We have, in fact, from one of our studies, it has emerged that when women do get access to basic financial services, say even opening a bank account, the entire household, the choice set of the entire household in terms of borrowing, in terms of how to cope with distress, that transforms. So if we are, which is all to say that designing DFS to build the competence of women at the last mile is not to be a top-down, I will educate you sort of an approach. They already have functional mental models. So as a product developer, you need to meet her where she is, understand where her mental models are, and start her journey from there, right? So in maybe one line, we could say, to build trust, start by modernizing her native financial ecosystem. Understand how she's managing money. Understand in what ticket sizes she's getting loan from the local kirana wala. Okay? Does she need money in the morning? Does she need money after she's been to the market and sold her goods? However, understand her patterns in order to be truly able to cater to her needs and hence develop trust. So load the unfamiliar on familiar dockets and build a digital financial confidence step by step. Now, so I've spoken about confidence, competence, I'm sorry. In your domain of work, can you think of any initiatives or any mechanisms that power the user confidence of women in this segment? If I could have maybe a couple of. Yes, yes.
Got one example. Normally, what bank does, they do come up with a specific FDs with higher interest rate for the which are especially for women only. So you go, so that they encourage women to come ahead and do those FDs. This is one of the examples.
All right. Any other? So I have a yes. Go ahead.
So when you say load the unfamiliar on familiar topics, does that sort of mean trying in our product journey, trying to build analogies to what they might be already doing or managing?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And we can go into some examples of that later on, unless you have something to share.
No, I would like to hear more like along these lines.
Sure. So your point that reminds me of. So we keep saying that women are group borrowers. They are not eligible for personal loans and much less for business loans. And there's this one Amul case study that we came across where Amul designed these marketing messages that were targeted specifically towards women, enabling loans for enterprise development. And there was a phenomenal rise in the number of women who came forward, showed the confidence of, okay, I am going to increase my herd size, I am going to set up my own collection center. So with something as simple as just putting up a hoarding and showing like a demonstrate, giving them someone to relate to on a big platform, that can make so much of a difference. So yes. Any other thoughts?
And maybe this is in the same context, and this is what a fintech came back to us and shared as a almost a personal story, where they were working with women BC agents to reach out to certain villages in Rajasthan, and then they wanted to do a get together of the agents, and they called this get together the Swavlamban workshop. The workshop, on the day of the workshop, the fintechs there, the colleagues are there, no women. All the men of the household are there. And then folks are worried what's happening. Then the regional folks start calling women, kya re aap aaye nahi? And they say, oh, but you said workshop. हमें लगा कुछ गाड़ी बनाने का कुछ कर रहे हो आप. So then it was turned into a Swavlamban Sammelan the next day. And women came. And in a way, that to me, that stood out as the example of, meeting her where she is. Workshop has a very mechanical connotation. And this was, not keeping in mind, what language does this person speak? And a little turn there made a difference.
I think that's a beautiful example. All right. So these are some how-tos that we have sort of seen work. First is minimize dissonance. Again, we are thinking of what we are trying to enable is a very complex transition. So in order to make that easy, you have to reflect the imagery of her real world, the colors, the language, the movement, the navigation. There has to be some a resemblance or resonance with her lived experience. More importantly, build on top of her existing financial behaviors. This is referring back to what Sir was talking about there. So, for instance, we know of this very interesting startup, and you may be familiar with them, called Gulak. Yeah? Women save. They are small savers. They may save at the post office or under their beds. These are stories that we are all familiar with. But what Gulak does is at a conceptual level on a digital platform that many of their users are probably first-time digital entrants, they're able to convey that imagination so seamlessly by using the imagery of a piggy bank or a gulak and adding labels and being able to bifurcate those your savings into, this is for your child's education, this is for your, I don't know, saving for the future, saving to build a house, however. So using skeuomorphic design, that is something we're already familiar with, and yeah, building on top, so graduating, helping her graduate. Linked to that, give her a learning curve. Now, the idea is to graduate our users from using informal finance to using structured finance and being able to connect with or plug into the formal financial service network. Now, in order to do that, you have to pace this transition. If you cannot overwhelm them, as one of someone here was saying. They log into an app and you sort of, there's a bluster of this product and that product and insurance and savings and all of it coming in all together. It's overwhelming. So you have to pace their journey. Open up your catalog of products and services slowly. Gauge where she is, what her what her levels of comprehension are, how far she's able to relate to your products and services, and then maybe give her time and give, maybe have like a little score. And as her score goes up, grows, you progressively unlock more and more features. And give her safe ways to experiment. So from our field research, something that we found that was very particular to women is that women need a lot of nudge in order to explore an app. So they say they have learned how to use Google Pay, or they have learned how to use, somebody, a peer or a husband has told them that this is how you navigate Google Pay, this is how you do a transaction. And what we see is that there is no inherent sort of desire to explore, beyond just that one pathway that has been indicated to her. Because there is this fear of, what if I do something wrong? Maybe this is not even her money. There is a lot of risk involved in her, sort of toying around, playing around with money on a phone. Hence, it is very important in order to sort of give her the confidence. Okay, you have mastered transactions. Now, how about you look at this little embed? Maybe you can use the same transaction facility to pay your bills. Maybe you can use this to pay your child's school fees. Maybe you could try this little SIP program. So make that. So in order to make those features salient, give her some space to explore. Give her some space to play around. Introduce play mode, let her navigate menus, make selections, and tell her the predicted outcomes. So that uncertainty around what will happen if I press this button, that sort of dissipates. And finally, in terms of building competence, remember that she appreciates meaningful communication and assistance. And this is again something that we found in our field research, and is fairly common knowledge, that women prefer assistance. They actively seek out assistance, and they prefer communication as opposed to men who perhaps would prefer to not be sort of nudged and spoken to all the time. But when it comes to women, if you are providing meaningful communication, and by meaningful I mean communication that is comprehensible to her, that is delivered in a format, in a language that she's able to absorb, that is delivered at specific action points where that communication is important, then she appreciates it. And that builds trust. All right. So that is competence. Principle 2 is designed to enhance control. What do we mean by control? In a trustor-trustee relationship, if I were to trust somebody, I would gauge their trustworthiness based on their reputation, based on what the market knows about them, what information is readily available about them, and what my past experience has been with them. Now, in the absence of these parameters, I will not trust myself to trust them. I will not have the confidence to trust them. So when you have these relationships where there's a high level of information asymmetry, high risk factor, and high uncertainty, what can sort of mediate the gap between the truster and the trustee are mechanisms of control. So for instance, legal action could be a mechanism of control. I being able to pose a reputational risk to the object or the entity that I'm trusting could be a mechanism of control. I being able to reverse my decisions without being penalized for something that I did without proper understanding could be a mechanism of control. So with low digital financial confidence comes fear. And fear is a huge motivating factor for women. There is the fear of backlash. There is the fear of society, your local community not supporting you. There is a fear of your family turning against you. There's a fear of losing money. Fear is something that is something that keeps women frozen and will not allow them to act. So you have to find ways to sort of let that dissipate. So fear of accidental purchase, fear of sharing the wrong type of information, exposing personal vulnerabilities, and ultimately the fear of causing irreversible damage. So when the user feels threatened from the get-go, trust is impossible. So to build trust, give her tools to protect herself. Can we think of some of these tools? Many of these are fairly obvious and have already been embedded in most of our apps. But when it comes to mechanisms that are specifically targeted and addressing the concerns of women, are there any examples that you could think of? No, valid point. Yes, yes. All right, moving on. So these are some of the things that we found work. Make consequences predictable. Show task flow previews and indicate the time and financial cost of a critical action. So anything unpredictable is difficult to trust. If I press this button, I don't know how मेरा पैसा कट जाएगा, कितना पैसा कटेगा, किस चीज़ के लिए कटेगा, नहीं पता. So give her those 3 panels to see कि अच्छा, if you do this purchase, this is what will happen, this is how it will impact your account, and then let her take the decision. Let her make an informed choice. Cover thumb rules of user protection, I mean, that's a given. Ensure minimal upfront data input. Tell your user why you're collecting their data. Why do you need like a 7-point questionnaire right as they enter the app? Tell them, I need this. This is, it's compliance or mandatory, or I need to understand you, or customize the app to your requirements. Make data and disclosures in context. Presenting all of that upfront or hiding that somewhere in the menu is not doing the job that it needs to do. Data sharing control, etc. Information, personal information, privacy has to be communicated in a way that is comprehensible to her instead of putting out a charter. But more importantly, cover for her. Her phone does not belong to her. That's the reality of it. In rural households and low and middle income households, a woman is sharing a phone that is shared by 5 other members of the household, including children, their mother-in-laws. So there is misinformed interference. Sometimes there could be malicious interference. Sometimes there are there are important messages sent. There are important notifications sent. Say you have to make this payment by this date, or you lose certain privileges, and that message does not reach the person that it's supposed to reach because the phone has been manhandled in the meantime. So bring in those controls, and make sure that shooting notifications is not enough. Make sure that she receives them and she understands them. Once you send them, maybe follow that up with a call. Make sure that there is some kind of a signifier that tells you that the person that is intended to receive this has received it. And finally, communicate good intentions. there's something very particular about how women build and develop trust, is that so with men, I mean, this is and we've discussed about this. We don't want to get into sort of ascribing certain trust variables to certain genders, but there's a lot of literature that is around to kind of support this, that men are it is easier to develop transactional trust with men, but it is easier to develop affective trust with women. So with women, if you are able to demonstrate that you are not going to take care of their vulnerabilities, they are likely to develop long-term and affective trust with you, which is where the whole communication part comes in. Champion her interest and well-being and tell her that, hey, listen, if you buy this product, you are probably not prepared for the premiums that come with it. And maybe, or for instance, she's applied for a loan, she's not eligible, she's been rejected. Tell her, hey, listen, do these 5 things, come back to me after 5 weeks, and get a credit score that you need to get, and then you'll be eligible. Right now, if I give you the loan, it'll be over-lending, you'll be over-leveraged or whatever. Communicate it to her. Communicate your good intentions. Tell her that I am not taking care of your vulnerabilities. It's not enough to just do that, but also to communicate that. Show her how her action points affect her future options. Indicate benefits. Celebrate wins. When she's made her first transaction, when she's made her first EMI payment, celebrate those little wins. When she's read some kind of a notification. So, and flag warning signs. Right. The third principle or the third pillar would be designed to leverage community. And this has already come in strongly from many of you. Women are deeply influenced by their communities and their social connections and family ties. Community converges as a locus of trust in many, many different ways. One is that it's a strong source of social validation. Second is women learn better in groups. Groups are able to model adoption behavior, usage behavior for women. Within groups, women are less insecure about voicing their doubts. So if discovery of a product happens within the group, then there is a higher likelihood that the woman will sort of talk about her experience with the product, and then you can tap into her, whatever difficulty she's facing and address that. All right. So to build trust, make community the central conduit for discovery, peer learning, problem solving, and loyalty creation. So women become incredible champions of services and products once they have established that it is trustworthy. So not only can community help you gain access or rather credibility with your user, but it can also help you build these champions and further your network and referral networks, etc. Again, same question to you. Are there any features or mechanisms that, or models that you are familiar with that leverage the power of community to build trust with women? And we've heard a few examples already beyond that.
So one was Amway, where they kind of build that trust while selling the products to the whole peer community.
Yes. We're seeing similar models in terms of developing micro entrepreneurs within communities. So we have one single resource person who then, a micro merchant who's a woman, and then she is able to take those services too. Yes. Any other?
Also have only started hearing about now is not just on the receiving side, but also on influencing my community as well. And therefore, that flow is two-way. And I think, so that was the only limited point I wanted to make, that community works both ways, that not only is my chances of getting onto a product, using it more, influenced by if there are people around me who use it. But if I start using it, I will also talk about it to my friends, to my relatives, and therefore that cycle grows.
That surely, as we go further, we will see the importance of cultivating and enabling such communities, and how they can become a very fertile ground for learning, exploration, and development of further competence of the user. Yes. What was your first question? Oh, app reviews. Yes. So I will come to that. Just hold on to that question. Are there any other thoughts? We've also seen examples of pinkification. We will not speak about that. All right, if there are any no other further thoughts, I'll proceed. All right, so go hybrid. Again, there is quite a bit of research to say that compared to men, when it comes to digital interfaces, women want social interaction, whether it is actual social interaction or simulated social interaction in the sense of online communities, online groups, forums, influencers, etc. So that really helps to build, because so that they're able to put a face to it. Overall, the anonymity that they experience on a mobile platform. So go hybrid, recruit female community leaders, and as community touch points for assistance or grievance redressal, give her someone real to go to when she fumbles. That person may not be able to solve their problems. They may just act as a conduit to connecting them to someone at your back end, or perhaps just helping them navigate the app. But either give her someone real or give her someone similar in a digital avatar that she can relate to, that she can communicate with. Use WhatsApp, use multiple different kinds of channels to reach out. Tap into existing collectives and associations. So one aspect of this, which we'll come to a little later, is cultivating these intentional communities. The other is tapping into existing communities. And this has been done to a very large extent by SHGs and MFIs and other FPOs even. So tie up and borrow legitimacy. So borrowing credibility from existing cooperatives, other collectives. Start by digital. This one very interesting example that we have recently come across is, again, talking about women micro-entrepreneurs may not be eligible for personal loans at this point in time. But they are drawing finance, they're drawing money from these group loans to meet their business needs. So what you could do, but at this point in time, you're not directly able to lend to her for a number of reasons. So what you could do is start digitizing the finances of the group. Start digitizing the SHG's finance. Get that touch point. And then once you're able to maybe perhaps track and build digital trails for each individual member, then reach out to them. Gain hyperlocal endorsements and show proof of adoption. Social proof is extremely a strong driver. Say, display a local branch manager stamp of approval. Go local. Let them know that, again, this is a relatability factor. Triangulate and show local adoption numbers, plug relatable customer stories. Yeah? And create multiple channels of engagement. Again, emphasizing that women learn in groups, they perform better in groups, they absorb better in groups, they are able to, they have more confidence in their decisions when their decisions are validated or replicated by other members of their group. So leverage that, whether it is in the form of actual physical groups on ground or online communities, WhatsApp groups, however. So I will pause there and open the house if there are any comments or suggestions or any further ideas. Or any thoughts in general? Do you think we've missed out on something? Is there anything very sharp that we have overlooked or that you can think of needs to be looked into further? So voice is a way to get around that to some extent, I would say. And again, somewhere we talked about engaging multiple channels of communication and using voice wherever possible. So whether it is in page-to-page navigation or whether it is to do grievance redressal or whether it is to get notifications. In fact, we know of several startups who are trying to identify what the ideal persona of a conversational AI should be to be able to effectively communicate with women in this segment. So there is a lot of potential, of course. We can gradually build up, I wouldn't say literacy skills to the extent possible, or rather enable that transition from their language to the formal language. But in the meantime, voice can serve as a good recourse.
Yeah, so there's definitely, and this is data that we got from 5 Hindi speaking states, there's definitely numerical literacy and pattern literacy. And in fact, for the most complex looking of even payment apps, even if I'm a literate person, I don't read. I know the pattern, and that is how I navigate the transaction.
Okay.
So that becomes a way to leverage or at least get ahead a little, maybe just a couple of steps above the literacy barrier.
Okay.
It is a barrier.
Thanks.
Comment and then a question. In our work, we realize we came across this interesting thing where sort of professionally waged women versus just the pure housewife, they don't necessarily have very different patterns, whether in terms of their insecurities, whether in terms of their preferences, whether in terms of how much they want to go inside of family, so on and so forth. It's very consistent. Is that the case? Like, does experience are the same, or we just have like a different data set that we came across?
We've not collected data on this, and therefore we don't have our own proprietary data sets to be able to comment on this. Anecdotally, I would tend to agree. The only difference that one can posit is that there's a time away from the household for one category, and that may open some conduits of more information, different circles, different communities, and more ways to receive information or engage with the world. But don't have any. I don't know if you.
No, again, anecdotally and perhaps just logically, access to money. So waged women will have independent, not necessarily independent access to money, but they can be converted to have independent access to money. So if they are getting their wages straight to their husband's bank account, or they're just collecting their wages and depositing it into their husband's palms or in a household kitty, there is a greater leeway to sort of intervene and help her have, or support her have greater control over her personal finances and make her own independent financial decisions.
I just one observation. I mean, from the inside that we had. We've always heard about people talking about client education, customer education. We say like, let's not try to educate. I mean, let's try to learn from them. Case in on the point in case was we were trying to drive adoption, and we were saying that why are people not taking up? We are giving them low cost credit at such affordable pricing, and they were not taking it up. And we said like, itna sasta hai, why are you not taking it up? And they were of the thought that this is not unsecured. They thought they will have to pledge their gold, stuff like that. And that was the learning, that listen to the client and then try and convince them, instead of telling them that, hey, this is the product for you and that you need it because we think so. So I think to drive, don't educate them, learn, and then communicate with them. It's a better adoption strategy.
It's a journey that I think both the provider and the user have to make together.
It sounds so simple.
I am sure it is not.
Sure.
I think we are nearing the end. So we're at the end. Just would like to leave you. Yes, sir.
Do we have any paper or link to the research that was done?
Which one? There were several that were referred to.
The research on the women empowerment for financial inclusion.
The diluters and the strength. We have a couple of pieces, so if you could write to Trisha, the email's right there. I can just bounce those papers to you.
So just we're going to leave a calling card. But first of all, we are partnering with the Reserve Bank Innovation Hub for the Swanari Tech Sprint this year. Applications are open for until September 11th, which is Monday. And this time, the problem statement is tech solutions to improve credit access to women-led MSMEs. If you or anyone you know has an interesting solution and would like to apply for it, please do. And finally, talk to us, reach out to us. We are supporting fintechs, building for women, and we have an assorted portfolio of support that we offer, which ranges from funding to mentorship to networking and other kinds of support. So do write to us, do stay in touch and reach out to us. And thank you very much for being here and for a lovely discussion that I personally really enjoyed and learned from. Supriya, over to you. All right, thank you.
Thank you, ladies. An absolutely engaging and fabulous session. May I invite you up on stage, please? We have mementos we'd like to present to you on behalf of Pervoice, our partner. And let's have a round of applause. This was truly a very engaging session. In fact, I think in the last hour or so, I've seen so many people speak all through this room. I haven't seen it in the last 2 days. So, ladies, you had an absolutely fabulous session here. Please step up, Trisha, and to Dr. Supriya. Let's have those mementos up, please.